And you're welcome back. Education has always been described as the foundation of any society. But today in Enugu State, education is not just evolving, it is undergoing a deliberate transformation from the rollout of technology-driven smart green schools to a shift away from rote modernization towards experimental skill-based learning. Enugu is positioning itself as a model for education reform in the Southeast and perhaps across Nigeria. But beyond the policy announcement and infrastructure project, critical questions remain. What does the transformation really mean for nursery, primary, and secondary education? Are teachers equipped? Is the curriculum aligned with the future of work? And a student truly being prepared for a world driven by technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship? Today, we will take a closer look at the current state of education in Enugu State, examining the progress, the gaps, and the opportunities, and asking whether the education system is truly preparing the next generation for the realities of tomorrow. To discuss this, I am joined by Samson Oko, Admin Lead Network Africa, and the proprietor of schools here in Enugu State. Mr. Samson, happy new month.
Yeah.
You'll be here this month.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Okay, so we're talking about the state of education in Enugu State.
Yeah.
How would you describe the current state of education in Enugu State?
I would say that nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
Yes, nothing really has changed. Of course, we see the smart schools, we hear in the media and all the rest, but me, I will always look at it from the impact it's having in the children, right? Do we have more out-of-school children now, which we obviously do have in Enugu, because Enugu State is not isolated from what is happening in Nigeria. I mean, there is more poverty, right? More and more families are now thrown into poverty, so most of them cannot afford education. So the unfortunate thing now is, of course, we always hear policies upon policies, smart green stuff.
The smart green schools, right? Let's just head straight into it.
Okay.
How transformative are these reforms of smart green schools? Are we seeing the impact? What is actually in these smart green schools that is being talked about every other time? Whenever the government, you question them, the ones here in Enugu, the government in Enugu, you hear someone in their portfolio, it's the smart green schools and the impact and what it's doing. They have built this in different wards in Enugu State. Tell us about the smart green schools.
Well,
you've seen it.
Yes. Of course, I have.
How equipped are these schools?
The smart school, if it was really executed the way it should be, it's supposed to bring a lot of transformation to our education sector in Enugu. Imagine if those things were done. But in reality, beyond what the government is saying, if you go and inspect by yourself, you'll find out that there is a lot that still needs to be done practically. Even the government cannot come out authoritatively to tell us how many of the 260 smart schools are ready. Most of them are not ready. None of the government aides can tell us that, okay, we have 260 smart schools in Enugu. How many of them do we have 60 of them ready? What is seen is that most of them are not ready. And even those that are working, that have been painted, there's really nothing inside it. There are just few. Or sometimes we hear it was last 2 weeks that we heard the news of one of them during the rain or so. The zinc was carried away. So I think they see a lot that needs to be done in the smart school. I believe that there is a way the government could have done it. It will really improve education. It's not just the building.
Okay. We keep focusing on the smart green schools here in Enugu. And we don't just only have the smart green schools. We have all the private schools.
Yes.
We have public schools.
Yeah.
Have these also integrated into them as well? Or is this just specially for the smart green schools, the technology and the innovation? Have it also gotten into your own school?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
The issue is the smart school itself, the technology has not landed there. These things are supposed to have a ripple effect. Look at the way it should be. If the government-owned schools start performing so much, it will naturally force the private schools to also improve. But when it is the other way around, that parents, the fees paid in the public schools are far cheaper than those paid in the private schools. But you see parents preferring to take their children to the private schools rather than the government-owned school. That is telling you that parents trust the private-owned schools to do more diligence, to really impact more knowledge on the wealth, on the pupils and students than those government-owned schools. And most of the time, we think that a good school is a school with all the structures, but that is not often the case.
Okay, which structures are we talking about here?
We are looking at, of course, normally.
Robotics, digital skills.
Yes.
Have these private schools, have they also gotten this?
I am telling you that it's difficult to get an empirical data on the smart schools. That even the
not
government,
just the smart schools. I'm talking about private schools in Enugu.
The private schools are always coming up, right? And of course, it's not easy to run a private institution. I can tell you that most private schools are really doing what they can do. That is why the parents are going over to those places. However, if the government comes in, remember that education is a critical sector of the society, just like we have health sector, security. Yes. What the private individuals do is only complementing what the government is supposed to do. It is the duty of the government to really provide enabling environment for education to thrive. But what we often see in Nigeria, in Enugu State, is often when the policies are made, strict policies are often being imposed on the private schools. But it should be the government schools taking the lead. Take the lead, then naturally the private schools will be forced to do the right thing.
So you're saying that this whole smart brain schools and the perks that comes with it, the government is not leading even the pace of this particular...
I am saying that at this moment, the state cannot even tell us out of the 260 smart schools, the number of smart schools that are ready. How many of them are ready? How many of them have been built? Of course, everybody, it was a popular story. The Sujimoto stuff. It was also the smart schools. So we do not really know. There's a lot of things that are left to people's imagination. The government should be able to tell us how many of the smart schools are ready. And even be able to tell us the communities, the wards that these smart schools are already functioning in. These things are not available to the public. You ask this person, he doesn't seem to have all the data. It appears maybe there are still things the government have not done, and they are not willing to tell us they have not been able to achieve this. Of course, we hear in the media that smart schools are ready, mechatronics, but enter even on those schools, you don't see them. You don't see these things happening. That also calls the question, what is it? Wouldn't it have been better if the government choose 17 local governments in Enugu and built one smart schools in each of those local governments, and instead of investing 150-something billion in each of the structures, in each of the smart schools across 260 wards, imagine bringing out 1 billion to invest in the secondary and primary schools across each community, and then concentrate in one location in a local government and build a smart school. That is to say, Enugu would have 17 smart schools, and then you invest some money in beefing up the structures and what is inside the other schools. Because what is happening now is that some of the schools that were already in existence are being shut down or handed over to the mission, so that the pupils and teachers will now be transferred to the smart schools. There's a lot of confusion around the smart school structure.
Okay, you mentioned teachers, and quality education is central to quality teachers.
Yes.
What is the level of, what kind of teachers do we have currently in Enugu? How prepared are they? These teachers, how equipped are they?
Yeah, I think the issue has never been the teachers.
Never been the teachers?
Yes.
Do we have teachers that would lead in this whole robotics, digital skills? Do we have the teachers with this knowledge here in Enugu State?
That is what
in their numbers.
I'm about to say. Yes. The government are the one that thought out the smart school. The concept of a smart school is something that should be appreciated.
Okay.
However, there are things that should be put on ground before the smart schools. Like I often say, I've said it in many platforms, that what makes a school smart or a hospital smart is not how big the structure is. It is the knowledge of the workforce, in this case, the teachers, and the gadgets inside it. So if you have the structure without the gadgets and the workforce being the teachers, then you don't have a smart school. I mean, most of the teachers we have, especially those that will man the smart schools, I mean, some of them are still finding it difficult to even know basic computer literacy. Some of them are still being, going through trainings and all the rest. So I think the government really need to do more work. The way it is now, the teachers we have at the moment I don't think they have that ability to really teach that smart schools, except if the government has the intention of importing teachers. But if it is the current teachers we have, then the government must go into further training. Give it time, because you can't give what you don't have. True. You cannot give what you do not have.
And have you heard of any training for teachers?
I think that there are some training going on.
Okay.
There are trainings going on, but this is not what somebody will master within just maybe after 2 weeks training or no. When we talk about raising the next Mark Zuckerbergs, raising the next Elon Musk, then it's not what you just train somebody for 2 weeks or 2 months and expect the person, maybe a woman that is still managing to do normal WhatsApp, yes, or is managing to operate banking apps. Then you want the person to teach mechatronics, app building, website design. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
Yes.
So are we moving from certificate-based education to skill-based education? Now, you own a school. Well, how do you inculcate this into your curriculum, skill acquisition?
You know the way it's supposed to be is that the certificate is just supposed to be a testimony of what is already inside a student or a learner. But what we have in Nigeria, unfortunately, is that we have a certificate-dependent society, wherein, people go to school, they want to get a job, and in most cases, employers want you to have that certificate, and even some employers demand 5 years experience. Okay. So there's this push, there's this hunger for parents and even learners to get that certificate. However, as a school, right, the curriculum is there, the practicals are there to keep nurturing these children. But what we get is that most parents, most students really need their WAEC certificate. They need to get their certificate. The main reason why many people want to write JAMB, enter school, is just for that certificate, because you believe that with a certificate, you have a brighter future, right? You can go for a job, yes, you can apply for certain jobs. Although the way the country is, with millions, hundreds of thousands of graduates coming out every year, and just less than 20% of them getting a job that can pay the minimum wage. Because the whole economy is structured in such a way that most of the small businesses are not thriving. Most of them are finding it difficult to survive because of the taxation, government policies, and all the rest. So there are fewer businesses that are able to absorb these graduating students, though there's still this hunger to get certificate. But then, where will these people work at the end of the day? So it's neither here nor there. Why private schools and some government schools are doing their best to really impact, there's still that push that people want certificates.
Yeah. You just mentioned private and public school. And I know that back in the day, there's always been this competition between private and public schools.
Yeah.
Are they competing? Are they on the same level right now? Are they competing effectively together now?
The best way to see this is from those pupils and the students. Most parents would do everything to take their children to a private school. Look at, in most communities, you will see government schools with gigantic buildings. Then you will see a private school that is not really, the building is not really as gigantic and beautiful like the public-owned schools. But you will now see more children going to that private school than to the public school, because parents understand that it's not just the structure. So, of course, the way it should be, like I mentioned earlier, is that the government-owned school is supposed to be setting the pace. People should be competing to go to those schools, but what we see in most cases is that it is often the parents, when they cannot afford to go to the private school, that they will now settle for the...
So it's more like, over the years, the public school has not leveled up.
No. And they are not even... The governments are not really investing sincerely in bringing up the private schools. The public schools, yes. That is what is happening.
Okay, so is Enugu's education system really preparing these children for the future? And do we have the jobs that we are actually in the curriculum that we are preparing and the skills that we want them to? Like, do we have the jobs that they would get after getting the skills, obtaining the skills?
Is it the skills like the mechatronics?
Yes.
Oftentimes
the robotics.
The robotics. If, like I said, Enugu is not living in isolation. We are still in Africa. We are still in Nigeria.
True.
Everybody sees what is going on, right? So we live in a country that we say imports food, right? We say imports a lot of things. I mean, our governors do not even drive Nigerian-made cars. So there's still this interest in patronizing things made outside there. So the children, if assuming these mass schools begin to work, and sincerely the children are getting knowledge of robotics, mechatronics, it should not be discouraged. Some of them could be the people, the pioneers. True. When they get this skill, they could start on their own. True. They could even get outside funding. True. I mean, there's a lot of funding going on. Some of them could also travel out, get their skills, come back, empower others. So this is what it should be. However, the way it is at this moment is that the smart schools are not even ready to begin to inculcate this knowledge. Is it not when the children learn these things that they will not be able to really begin to give out what they have learned? You can't give what you don't have. Let the state be sincere with the smart schools. If we cannot get 260 of them ready, get 17 ready in each of the local government, let it begin to work, then empower the teachers. Beyond the structure, beyond the building, put in gadgets inside it, start gradually to beef up these schools. If these things are done, then within the next 10, 15 years, we'll be looking at people that graduated from these schools. And I can tell you that the way economy works, if more people begin to send their children to the smart schools, the government schools, the private schools will be forced to begin to teach them some subjects in order to compete. And when these things happen, you will find out that is when education standard comes up and the quality of graduates, the students coming out, I mean, go to China, you see 15-year-olds, 20-year-olds producing some of the things we rush to go and import into Africa and we brag with it. So there's no law that says that these things cannot be done in Enugu State, in Nigeria, but the government needs to be sincere about these things.
Do you think that the government should as well include private school in the budget for a fiscal year where they give private schools funding, especially private schools that are doing so well? They help fund their laboratories, help fund different departments in that school.
When the bad thing in our sector is that a sector as crucial as education, the government do not always like to empower the private players. I mean, most of the time when the government remembers these private schools are in the area of taxation, strict policies, supervision, and this is not rocket science. Whether a child is going to a private-owned school, a public-owned school, the person is still a citizen of a state. So when you are doing your policies and empowerment, do not neglect that child. When His Excellency Peter Obi was the governor of Anambra State, we saw that Anambra became the light in the area of education in Nigeria. I mean, why did he do it? It wasn't something that just happened. It was planned. He empowered the private-owned schools as he was also doing the public-owned schools. I mean, when he rolled out the buses for public schools, he also remembered the private schools. I mean, there's nothing stopping the government from saying, okay, we want every child that graduates in any secondary school to have basic computing skills. And how do you do it? Why not, okay, I am giving out laptops, computers to all the public schools, and I can also do the same for the private schools. You don't just give them strict policies, tax them. In fact, some of them have also shut down because of the taxation and all the rest. Yes, so these are things that the government should be up and doing. Why you do, empower the public-owned schools. Remember that the private schools are helping the government to do its duty of providing quality education. And the government cannot do it alone. Look at the area of agriculture. The government cannot produce all the food alone. Look at the area of health, the hospitals. Imagine if we have only government-owned hospitals, right? That means when government doctors go on strike, people will not be able to
access healthcare.
Yes. Okay. So this is very, very important. Look at most of the time, ASU strike is always happening in every administration. Imagine if people do not have the option of going to a private-owned tertiary institution. So the government needs to, when they are doing empowerment, do not forget the children of your citizens that are in the private-owned school. This is very, very important.
Okay. I know you've mentioned solutions, right? Yeah. That could drive the education sector in Enugu State forward. Yes. But is there one that you would say this would actually bring everything together? One more solution that you could give us on the show today?
I want two things.
Two things, okay?
One is, let the government stop seeing the private schools as competitors and start seeing them as collaborators, partners in progress, right? Because what we often see is that the eye of the government, the policies of the government, stringent policies are always on the private schools, right? We want them to do this, meet this standard. Why? You look at sometimes in the public-owned schools, you see that these standards are not there. Right? So begin to see the private schools as collaborators. They are helping you to achieve that goal. If it is really the goal to empower pupils, because at the end of the day, it is the pupils and the students, not just the school. You want the pupils and the students to become empowered citizens that can contribute to the society, which is Enugu State. So begin to see them as collaborators in the education sector. Wow. Then number two, instead of focusing all the resources in the smart green schools, which really have refused to become so smart, right? Instead of focusing all the resources, I mean, we are looking at over 150 billion for each smart schools. Yes, per ward across the 260 wards in Enugu State, right? Now, instead of focusing all the resources and attention on that structure, remember that there are also other government-owned schools across the world. I mean, if we come to a ward, let's say a ward, there could be up to 7, 8, 10 schools across the communities that make up that ward. And if the attention of the state is just on one structure, it means that the other other schools they are lacking attention, lacking resources. I mean, you go to some of those schools and you pity for, you could hear the headmistress or principal complaining of lack of staff. Some of them have to involve the PTA to get PTA teachers that are now being paid by PTA, right? So we really need the government to rethink this whole concept of the smart school. The smart school is very nice. My model would have been one smart school for one local government. Okay. Why the government should not be serious about empowering the other schools. I mean, beyond the smart schools, when Governor Sullivan was here, I think it was under his administration that he brought 18-seater buses across all the government primary and secondary schools in Enugu. These are some of the things that will help because we still have remote villages across Enugu. Enugu State is actually, we just have 3 local governments in Enugu that is in the urban area. And we have 17 local governments. That is to tell you that we still have more of Ndi Enugu in the rural areas. More of Enugu pupils and students in the rural areas. So instead of focusing just on that gigantic structure that we have in the smart school, even though most of them are not yet ready, we should consider the other children in places like Akpakumenze, in places like Anenri. These are remote areas. And if we neglect these children and don't empower them, they will grow up into adults that may cause issues in the society. So I just want the state, beyond seeing the private schools as collaborators, not competitors, let us be more sincere and more open. I mean, it's not a bad thing for a citizen of Enugu State to ask, how many of the smart schools are ready? At this moment, we do not know how many of the smart schools are ready. It's something worrisome.
Okay. Mr. Samuel Uko, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Education is a bedrock of any great society.
Yeah.
And I hope our government, they are listening, not just the Enugu State government, but across the Southeast and other regions, and we do better. and invest so much into our education sector. Thank you very much, Mr. Samaluku.
Thank you.
And yes, that is it for the Eastern Business Report and the Afia Business Morning. Returns on Monday. Many thanks for staying with us. My name is Noma Anibene. Bye for now.